You got the job. You got the raise, the house, the body you starved yourself into, the person who finally chose you back after years of choosing the wrong ones. You got the thing, and within days, sometimes hours, some cold arithmetic in your chest had already filed it under done and moved on to the next target. Nobody warned you about the speed of that turn. You thought the wanting would stop once you had it. It didn't stop. It just changed clothes and pointed somewhere else. Picture a wheel, not the kind that carries you anywhere. A wheel bolted to a fixed axle, spinning hard enough that the blur of motion feels like a journey. You are lashed to the rim of it. Every full rotation feels like arrival, because the wind in your face is real, even when the ground beneath you never moves. That wheel is what this script is about. You have been riding it since before you could form the word want, and no one sat you down to tell you it doesn't go anywhere. Think of the last thing you truly craved. Not needed, craved. The message you kept checking for, the number on the scale, the follower count, the acceptance email. Remember the exact texture of wanting it, how it sat behind your ribs like a held breath. Now remember how long the relief lasted once you got it. A day, an afternoon. For some of you, it didn't survive the drive home. Look at the dating app you keep open, even in a relationship you swear you're happy in. Look at the closet full of clothes you needed, the ones already starting to feel like they belong to someone less interesting than the person you're about to become. You matched with someone perfect last spring. By summer, you were swiping again, telling yourself it was just curiosity. Go back to the wheel for a second. Feel the wind of it on your face, that convincing rush of motion. Watch the spokes blur so fast you can't count them, the way a life blurs when you're always mid-chase for the next lap. You've called that blur momentum. You've called it drive. You've built entire personal brands on it. Nobody ever teaches you to ask what a wheel bolted to a fixed post is actually for. This is not a story about discipline or gratitude or wanting the wrong things. You could get everything on your list: the right job, the right body, the right person, the right number in the account, and the wheel would not slow for even one rotation. It would simply hand you a new list, written in the same hand as the old one, and you would pick it up like it was your own idea. That is the wound. You keep mistaking the turning of the wheel for the direction of your life. You call it ambition. You call it growth. You call it just how I'm wired, as if wiring were a comfort and not a leash. You build entire identities out of the chase. The hustler, the striver, the one who's always working on herself, always leveling up, never quite arriving, and somehow proud of that. You have made a virtue out of a wound that never closes. And underneath the vision boards and the 5-year plans, there is a simpler, older question you have been avoiding, because it has no comfortable answer. If getting what you want has never once made the wanting stop, what exactly is it that you're chasing? A man born in Danzig in 1788 spent his life answering that question, and his answer was bleak enough that most people who read it once never forget it. He didn't think you had a wanting problem. He thought you were made of wanting, that the you doing the chasing was never driving the wheel at all. He gave that force a name, and once you hear it, you won't be able to unsee it the next time your own hand reaches for a phone, a person, or a plate of food you weren't even hungry for. Arthur Schopenhauer did not think you have desires. He thought desire has you. And if that sentence didn't land right, sit with it a second longer, because it's the whole diagnosis in one line. He called the force underneath everything the will, not willpower, not a decision you make, but a blind, endless, purposeless striving running beneath all of existence, like a current under ice. It has no goal. It doesn't want anything in particular. It simply wants the way gravity doesn't decide to pull, the way fire doesn't decide to burn. You are one of the places that current surfaces and puts on a face. Everything you can see, touch, and reason about. Your job, your body, the four walls around you right now. Schopenhauer called representation. The world as it appears to a mind, orderly, full of cause and effect. But representation is the surface of the lake. It tells you nothing about the current underneath. There is exactly one place you feel that current, directly instead of just seeing its surface. Your own body. Not the body you see in a mirror, the body as it feels from the inside, as craving, as hunger, as the ache of wanting someone who left, as the restless leg under a desk at 4 p.m. That pressure isn't a symptom of the will. Schopenhauer said it is the will, caught in the act, wearing your skin as its instrument. This is where it turns dangerous. If your own wanting is the will speaking and not you, then I decided I want this is a costume. A convincing one, worn by a force that predates your name, your childhood, your personality, and will keep operating in other bodies long after this one is gone. Watch it in something small. You finish a plate of food you didn't need. 10 minutes later, without deciding to, you're standing in front of the fridge again. Nothing you wanted changed. The current just resurfaced, wearing a new want like a new shirt. Schopenhauer traced this same current all the way down the ladder of nature, not just through you. He said the will objectifies itself in grades. In gravity pulling two rocks together with no awareness at all, in a plant twisting blindly toward a window it cannot see, in an animal pacing a cage, because its whole body is one compressed demand for something just out of reach. Each grade gets more organized, more visible, more desperate. And then it reaches you, and it gets a mind attached to it. A mind that can name the wanting, justify it, dress it up as a 5-year plan, and still not control it for a single afternoon. You are not above the plant, twisting toward the window. You are the plant, with a vocabulary. Now scale it up. Schopenhauer said the whole of life swings on this, a pendulum between exactly two kinds of suffering. On one side, pain, the suffering of wanting something you don't have. On the other, boredom, the suffering of having nothing left to want. You assume the goal is to land in the middle, at contentment. Schopenhauer says the middle doesn't exist. It's a pendulum. It does not rest at the center. It swings, or it isn't a pendulum. You've lived this swing without naming it. The Friday you finally had nothing to do, you didn't feel peace. You felt itchy, restless, half a day from inventing a problem just to have something to solve. That itch wasn't weakness. That was the pendulum mid-swing, because sitting still is not something it knows how to do. Look at the vacation you saved a year for, the one you needed so badly you could taste it in February. By day 4, lying by the water, with nothing left to want, you were already opening your phone to look at flights for the next one. Not because that trip failed, because arrival was never on the itinerary to begin with. Here is the part that should actually disturb you. Satisfaction in this system isn't a positive thing you gain. It's the brief hollow silence that happens when one particular want goes quiet. That's the entire architecture of happiness. Not a filling, but a gap between hungers, over before you finished noticing it. You don't get to keep it. You were never going to get to keep it. He looked at the difference between an animal pacing a cage and a man pacing his own mind, and said the man suffers more, not less, because intellect doesn't free you from the will, it arms it. An animal wants only what's in front of it. You can want a future that doesn't exist yet and grieve a past that never happened the way you remember it. Memory and imagination don't rescue you from craving. They multiply it across time you don't even currently occupy. So ask yourself the question underneath all of this. When was the last time you wanted something, and it was actually you doing the wanting, and not something using you to want it? If these words carved an echo within your void, do not turn back. The descent has just begun. Click below, subscribe, and claim your reality. Here's the assumption you walked in with, the one you don't even know you're carrying, that when you want a specific person, a specific job, a specific version of your life, you want it because of what's actually in it, because of their laugh, because of the salary, because of some quality the object itself possesses that earned your desire. Schopenhauer spent an entire essay taking that apart, and it's ugly enough that most people who read it wish they hadn't. He looked at romantic love, the kind that feels like it was written specifically for you, for this one irreplaceable person, and called it the most convincing lie the will ever tells. Not because the feeling isn't real, it's ferociously real, but the intensity, he argued, doesn't come from you or from them. It comes from the species operating through you, manufacturing the sensation of only this one, because that sensation is what gets two people to override every rational objection and reproduce. You feel like you're choosing a person. Schopenhauer says you're being used by a force with no interest in your happiness at all, only in continuation. It never needed the marriage to last. It only needed the feeling to be strong enough once. Widen the lens, and it stops being just about love, the job you had to have, the car you couldn't stop picturing yourself in, the phone you camped out for, the one that felt, for about a week, like it might actually complete something in you. Schopenhauer would say the craving underneath all of it is generic and formless, and it simply borrows the nearest sufficiently vivid object to wear as a mask. You didn't fall for that person, that career, that image of yourself, that piece of glass and aluminum. Something with no face borrowed theirs, the way it always does, the way it already has 10 more times since, quietly, without asking your permission. Remember the wheel. Here's where it turns on you completely. You've been picturing yourself lashed to the rim of it, a separate self, trapped, but still a self, still a you who could theoretically be cut loose one day. Schopenhauer takes even that away. He says the separateness itself is an illusion, something he inherited from the Indian philosophy he read obsessively. A veil over your eyes that makes one indivisible current look like billions of distinct individuals, arguing, competing, falling in love, going to war with each other. He called it the principium individuationis, the principle that carves one current into the appearance of you and me, as if we were separate things at all. He found the same idea waiting for him in the Upanishads, in Buddhist doctrine, in texts written centuries before he was born, describing the exact same veil under different names. In a different language, on a different continent, arriving independently at his one conclusion, the separateness was never real, only convincingly rendered. There is no rider on the wheel. You are not lashed to the rim. You are a spoke, cut from the same iron as every spoke around it. There was never a version of you sitting safely outside the mechanism, waiting to be rescued from it. And if you're already reaching for the exit, thinking, fine, then I'll just rise above it, watch the wheel turn without being caught in it. Schopenhauer has one more knife for that too. The wanting to escape is still a wanting. The self that imagines stepping back to observe the machine objectively is still manufactured by the machine, still a spoke pretending it found a seat outside the wheel. There is no clean exit through more wanting, not even the wanting of freedom. Sit in that before you look for the door, because the door is real. It just isn't where you think. It isn't behind more effort, more insight, more self-improvement content consumed at double speed. It's on the other side of finally admitting there was no separate you to save in the first place. Here it is. If the separateness was always an illusion, then the suffering was never only yours to carry either. The loneliness in it, the sense that you alone are cursed with this hunger, while everyone else seems to have it figured out. That was the illusion too. Every spoke on the wheel is turning with the exact same iron running through it. Once you actually feel that, not just understand it as a sentence, something loosens in the chest that has been clenched since before you can remember. Because it turns out the wheel was never turning against you personally. It was never that intimate. It never even knew your name. Seeing the wheel doesn't stop it. Understanding the current has never once slowed the current down. Schopenhauer wasn't naive about that. He didn't hand out a 5-step plan to happiness, because in his system, happiness was never the kind of thing you could plan your way toward. What he left behind instead were 4 narrower openings, 4 places where the grip loosens for a moment, each one demanding something specific and uncomfortable, none of them permanent, all of them real. You're at a concert, 3 songs in, and for 11 seconds straight you forget you have a body, a job, a name, a single thing you currently want. That gap is not a coincidence, and it is not nothing. Schopenhauer built an entire escape route out of it. He believed music sits closer to the will than any other art, not a picture of the world, but almost a direct copy of its blind striving, minus the suffering. In the rare moment you're actually absorbed in something beautiful, not scrolling past it, not photographing it, not narrating it in your head for later. The wanting self goes quiet. You stop being a craving creature standing in front of the object and become, briefly, nothing but the seeing of it. He called this becoming the pure, will-less subject of knowledge. Call it the vanishing trick. The demand is specific, and it will feel stupid. Pick one piece of music or art this week and give it your full, undocumented attention. No photo for later. No phone at all. If your hand twitches for it mid-song, that twitch is the entire subject of this script, reaching for you right on schedule. The cost. It doesn't last. You'll fall right back into wanting within minutes. But for those few seconds, the wheel spun without you on it. Proof it was never load-bearing to begin with. Starve the wheel is uglier, and Schopenhauer knew it. He respected the ascetic, not because self-denial is noble, but because refusing a craving on purpose is the one act that proves, in your own body, that you are not contractually bound to obey every reach of the will. Pick one real craving today. The phone check, the sugar, the message you're dying to send, the online cart you've already mentally justified, and refuse it. Not for health, not for productivity, not so you can post about the discipline later. For no reason except to watch what happens when the current wants to move and you don't let it. Set a timer if you have to. Sit with your hands empty and your chest tight, and do not fix the discomfort with a substitute craving. It won't feel empowering. It'll feel closer to standing in a current and refusing to fall over. That discomfort is the entire point. It's the sound of the wheel discovering it can turn without dragging you along for once. The shared nerve starts with an accusation aimed at you. You've already decided, somewhere today, that someone else's wanting is embarrassing. Beneath you. The co-worker chasing a title too openly. The friend still checking if their ex replied. You've built a quiet little shrine to the idea that your hunger is dignified, and theirs is not. Schopenhauer's ethics stands on tearing that shrine down. He leaned on an old phrase from the Indian texts he read until the pages wore thin. Tat tvamaz, that art thou. The recognition that the striving disgusting you in someone else is the same current running in you, wearing a different coat. Take the person whose want repels you most this week. Don't fix them. Don't forgive them out loud. Just silently name their craving as your own in different clothes. It will cost you your favorite superiority, the story where your wanting was always the tasteful kind. The caught hand is the one you'll use the most because it doesn't need a concert or a fast, just half a second of attention. Since thought runs downstream of the will, you can't out-argue a craving, but you can catch it mid-motion, in the sliver of time between the reach and the grab. Next time your hand moves for the phone, the fridge, the send button you'll regret in an hour, say it, even under your breath. This is the will, not a decision. Most of the time you'll name it and grab anyway. Do it anyway. The naming isn't resistance, it's daylight, the half-second gap between the current and the costume it's wearing. Do this enough times and the gap doesn't close, but you get faster at noticing you're standing in it. In this entire philosophy, daylight is the only place anything resembling freedom has ever lived. The email arrives again months later. Congratulations, you got it. The role, the number, the version of the win you'd been circling on the calendar for a year. Your hand moves toward the phone out of nothing but old habit, already reaching for the next tab, the next listing, the next thing to want before this one has even finished landing in your hands. This time you catch the hand. Not forever. Schopenhauer never promised forever. And anyone who tells you they've fully silenced the will and now lives in permanent, effortless peace is selling you something. You catch it once, the way you'd catch a wrist mid-air. You say the sentence, even just in your head. This is the current, not me. And in that gap, small, almost nothing, over before you finished noticing it, you actually feel the win. Not the next one. This one, the one currently sitting in your hands, the one you were about to trade for a headline about the next one. That's the whole change. Not a bigger want, satisfied better. A smaller, quieter you, watching the want arrive and choosing, once, not to climb on. It shows up smaller than the email too. It shows up across the table from someone you love, on an ordinary Tuesday, when the old current would have had you half present, already scanning for whoever or whatever might be better than this, than them, than tonight. You catch that hand as well. You put the mask down. The one that told you this feeling was about their specific laugh, their specific eyes, the irreplaceable fact of them. And underneath it, you find something sturdier than the mask ever was. You. Actually here, actually looking at an actual person, for once not being used by something that doesn't know their name either. The wheel is still turning. It will turn tomorrow, and it will turn on the day you die, and it will keep turning in every other body on this planet, whether or not you ever read a page of Schopenhauer. Nothing in this script stops the wheel. That was never on offer, and anyone promising you that was lying. What changes is where you stand in relation to it. You started this lashed to the rim, certain the motion was your life, certain that if you could just get the next thing, the wheel would finally slow down and let you rest at the center. There is no center, there was never going to be one. But there is a real, felt, load-bearing difference between being dragged by every rotation and standing close enough to watch it turn without mistaking the turning for yourself. You will still want things tomorrow. The old reach toward the next job, the next person, the next number that was supposed to be enough this time. That reach doesn't make you weak or shallow or bad at this. It makes you exactly what Schopenhauer said you were from the start, a place where the current surfaces. The only thing that's actually yours to decide is whether you notice it happening while it happens, or find out the way you always used to, 3 weeks later, already chasing the next thing, wondering why the last one never landed. Go back to the very start of this. The job, the house, the body, the person who finally chose you. None of it was ever going to be enough, and now you know why. Not because you picked the wrong job, the wrong body, the wrong person, but because enough was never a place the wheel was built to stop at. That was never a failure of yours to fix. It was the design, working exactly as intended, on you, on everyone you've ever envied, on every person who looked from the outside like they'd finally figured it out. Catch the hand. Just once today. It never gets more advanced than that. You can't stop the wheel. Stop being it. What are you reaching for right now? And whose hunger is it really?